Hello, Johnny. Let's get on with it, shall we? So I'm standing on a shit tank, quite literally. This is the shit generated by the animals pissing about in their foals. It's generated mainly by the sewer, but it can also be generated if it's something along the lines of if they walk on a specific thing that isn't the sewer, and you can pick it up from villagers because they dump sewage pools around. It's something along those lines. I'm not too sure about the first statement, but the second one about the villagers dumping their shit all over the place is quite literally true. So yeah, but anyway, so why would I want the shit? Well, the same reason that any farm would want the shit. I use it to make fertilizer. Now, the fertilizer itself is quite useless because it doesn't really work with the crops just as bone meal does. You know, it has to be used in a machine, and the machines you use is fertilizers. The issue with these is that despite the amount of energy they can hold and be fed, they actually consume a ton compared to other Minecraft Reloaded machines, so you need to be prepared for that. Because you'll see when I turn this on, it works a lot faster than any harvester would possibly do. You see, it fill up the entire mini farm here with the fertilizer, and the harvester is only just picking up on it. So you need to be aware that these consume somewhat more power than anything else, considering every other machine from Minecraft Reloaded. So yeah, keep that in mind, and that's why I've got these solar panels and the windmill going on into these energy cubes, which don't really do anything else than power those two machines and the one beneath. But I'll get to the one beneath in a bit. Also shown that in my tour, but I'll go a bit more into detail. So the way I made this work was I first made this work was I gathered 2 cows, I made them breed twice, then I had 4 cows, and then I made those breed until I had 6 grown cows, and I put them in here and decided that wasn't enough. I needed 8. And what did I need them for? Well, for one, to generate sewage and mob essence. Mob essence I don't really know what to do with yet, but I know that you use them to make mob spawners. But that is a thing for another video, for another time. For now, I'll be focusing on what I can use these animals for. So, this breeder here is fed wheat all the time. I can check the amount of wheat I have, and carrots as well. And the breeder then feeds these cows, which obviously makes them very horny for some fucked up reason. I don't really know why they decided that's how it works, but it is. And then they suddenly make a baby, and the baby is then being pulled by this chronotyper, which you can actually set to move other stuff, but it's moving babies from the adults into this little range here, which then when they grow up, get out of the corner, get out of the car. Which then means when they grow up, they're getting slaughtered by the slaughterhouse, which kills them painlessly, I suppose, because they insta-kill. Insta-killed. It's a hole that really bothers me. Oh my god. There's a hole in my farm. I've done the same thing with the pigs. Yeah, you saw the slaughterhouse work right there. Insta-kill, and then it pumps out the meat, and sometimes the pig slime, into these tanks. Despite the fact that they could hold whatever they want to, I successfully made it so that these tanks actually never drain, because I put the outgoing meat over here, which means the ingoing over here won't actually get that far, which means when it comes to the point this has, it won't actually spread. Well, it will actually spread, my bad. It will spread over the bottom of the entire tank, making it so this never actually empties and never can receive pink slime. If there at some point actually comes pink slime into this, I'll have to fix the entire bottom row, and it will clog up the machines downstairs as well. So that is a thing to consider. I could fix this by making this not receive pink slime at all. That is a thing you can do, but I chose not to because, quite frankly, I didn't think of it till now. That is a stupid thing. But yeah, you make pink slime, you make meat. It's literally called meat, yeah. And you make mob essence. Mob essence you can use to make a spawner. It is a spawner which can make anything you can capture in the Safari Net. If you don't know what a Safari Net, you might know what a golden lasso is. If you don't know what either of those are, I'll show you two versions of the Safari Net right here. So, if I per se wanted to move this pig, yep, you'll see that I did. I picked up the pig and moved it. There is a difference in these nets though. They will say what the difference is, and as you might have noticed from the other transfer, that net broke instantly after I used it, or rather after I deployed the pig. This one is reusable, meaning of course that it don't break. So that is a quite important detail to keep in mind when you're using these. But they're really handy. And if I were to pick up this pig, for example, and then put the Safari Net here into a thing called a spawner, I believe it's called a auto spawner, yeah. This thing, it'll use the pink slime along with some power and then generate whatever I put in the Safari ball, or net, which would be pigs in this case, meaning that I generate a ton of pigs. Pretty cool, eh? So the last thing I want to talk about is the meat, because that is a bit more interesting. Every time one of these slaughterhouses, and that being one of the 4, kills an animal, it will pump out the pink slime, the meat, and the mob essence into their respective tanks as long as I have clogged up the system. And the meat itself is extremely useful because it can be used to make meat ingots. If we're lucky, that'll come one out while I'm talking. If not, I'm gonna have to find one, and that's gonna be, well, not as fun. So the idea is, when you pump out the meat from the tank upstairs, it will go into one of these meat packers, which will then compact it, I suppose, and then push out a raw meat ingot. This is literally what it sounds like. It is a raw meat ingot. You can cook it, and then you get cooked meat ingot. These are so extremely good. I believe they filled six shanks, 6 chickens, 6 legs, 6 hunger, 6 food, whatever you want to call it. And obviously that is insane. So I always make sure that I use the system, just because I don't really want to set up any weird farm killing pigs using some kind of clicker. Oh, speaking of, by the way, that is a good point. Not only am I making meat, I'm also, well, not anymore because I disabled the system because I made too much, but I'm able to make milk in quite substantial amounts. The only reason I stopped this is because, obviously, to move this milk I need buckets. With the system I have here, at least. I might update it at some point to try and not use buckets. But the idea is that these the autonomous activator, which is what this machine is called, uses an empty bucket on a cow that happens to walk by. The cow then gets milk. Then it gets pulled into the system by these export buses. No, wait, by these import buses, my bad. Which pulls out the full buckets. Then it pumps the empty buckets back into the machine, while the milk buckets are being pumped into this machine here, which then dumps the milk into the tanks. Then the empty bucket is being pulled out again from that machine down there, which has dumped the milk into the tanks. Rather silly, innit? But it worked quite well. Too well, because I had to make 300 buckets just to make this damn thing work. Because each of these can hold 9 times 16 buckets. And whew, it turned into a shitfest. I just hit the microphone, didn't I? Excuse me for that. But it turned into a shitfest, and I had to disable it. As you can see, it's just a half floating wire here. I used to think that it was fine due to the fact that it had a vertical line, which didn't look ridiculous, but now that it's just flowing with a bunch of stuff suspended on it. Looks weird. I'm gonna have to build some pillars at some point, but that's a project for another time. I'm not really a builder, I'm more of an engineer, I suppose you would say. So yeah, that is how this entire thing works. The only thing left to mention is that these sewers, which generate both sludge and mob essence, they too, crap, those animals are loud. They too have to be wired into the pipes going around the system here, which means the mob essence otherwise will clog up the entire system. I had on it a small experiment where these weren't hooked up with the mob essence, and it turned out because they weren't. The second these was empty of sludge, the mob essence would then be pulled out from these and fill the entire pipe system beneath this place with mob essence, clogging up everything except the meat. And that of course is a pain. I couldn't really do anything, so I was wondering at one point why these were filled with everything. They just weren't working. So I tried filling around with it, found out that the mob essence was the problem. So keep that in mind. This system needs some perfecting, because if you mess it up or forget one detail, you might just clog up the entire damn system. So when you make it, if you make it, you really want to double check that everything is in order. Also, you don't really need 4 of the machines that makes sludge into fertilizer. No, sewage into fertilizer. You could have less, you could have more, depending on how much you want to make, how big your farm is, how many animals you have, and how many sewers you have. Because I don't really think these have any kind of registration, anything that counts how much sludge or sewage is being made. Jesus Christ. So yeah, if you want to just mass produce fertilizer for some reason, you can. But keep in mind that the more you make, the more you have to keep in mind that you're making more. That was a bit complicated, but you should by now know what I mean, because if you have more sewage, you need more fertilizers. If you have more fertilizer, you need more power. If you have more fertilizer, you need even more power to feed the fertilizer machines to fertilize the crops, which then needs the harvester. And holy shit. It is one long process, and all of these are intertwined. Is that a word? I think it is. And which means that they all work together, and without them, they can't really work. Each of these machines have something they're connected to. The only thing left now is the sheep. I believe I've said that twice. In this one this one video. The sheep are also being sheared whenever they walk close to the autonomous activators. This one is in particular used. That's quite interesting. That is empty. Interesting. I need to fill these up. I haven't done that in ages, mainly because I got tons and tons of wool. Kinda want to kill you for that hat. Let me just check that hat off you. Much better. So yeah, the last thing I wanted to mention was that, plus the fact that animals disappear from time to time. So if they do disappear, of course you just have to make some more. In my case, I generally just use my extra pen over here and just take 2 of the animals I want to the side. Oops. Oh, my first cow. Go away. Come here. This is my 3rd breeding cow. I gave it a name to make sure it didn't despawn, but I seem to be missing the pigs one, because I made 2 of them as well. But anyway, I moved them over here to make them breed, and then move them back once the time is right. But yeah, that has been it for now. That was the farm, the animal farm. So next time I will be going over something else. I believe there is another part I want to go by. So yeah, I'll see you then. Bye.